Apple says the iPhone 7 is the best iPhone they've ever made. Well, of course it bloody is, why wouldn't it be? So yes, this is the best iPhone you can buy, and for those fully embedded in the Apple ecosystem, or those who just love iPhones and the easy to use iOS software, that's probably reason enough to upgrade and buy the latest iPhone. For everyone else though, I think Apple has made it harder than ever this year to justify upgrading. But let's run through what's new. The design has been tweaked. The antenna bands now follow the top and bottom edges of the phone. There's a smoother camera bump, a new force feedback capacitive touch button, and most importantly I think IP67 water and dust resistance, which means the iPhone 7 can be submerged in up to 1 meter of water for up to 30 minutes. At 7.1 millimeters thick and weighing 138 grams, the iPhone 7 still looks and feels great in the hand, even if you would struggle to tell the difference between this and the iPhone 6 and the iPhone 6s. The display hasn't changed much either. It's the same 4.7 inch 1334 by 750 resolution display, so only just above basic HD, but the iPhone 7 does have a much wider color gamut than older iPhones, so it looks more colorful and more vibrant. On the inside, we've got a new quad-core A10 Fusion processor, which is insanely fast, although the RAM has stayed the same at 2GB. As for storage, 32GB is the new minimum, thank God, up from 16 on all older iPhones. You also get 128 and 256GB options. The rear camera is still 12 megapixels, but it's got a much wider aperture at f1.8, which means it's much better in low light. It's also got a new quad LED flash and optical image stabilization built in. And finally, most controversially, the headphone jack has been removed, as we all expected. So actually, when you list out all the features like that, there is quite a lot new on the iPhone 7, but truthfully, it doesn't really add up to much. I did a quick unboxing video the other day, and once you peel off the plastic for the first time, you play with it for 5 minutes, you quickly realize there's not a whole lot to get excited about on the new iPhone 7. It's easy to use one-handed thanks to the relatively small 4.7 inch screen size, but the chunky bezels, lower than average 65% screen to body ratio, and the same design 3 years running is starting to get a bit kind of boring. The most obvious change here is the new home button. It doesn't press in anymore, instead using a version of the 3D Touch Taptic engine to give you force feedback, which is actually very convincing and makes you think you're pressing it down. The benefit of the new button is it helps the phone to be water resistant, but it also gives new vibration feedbacks and notifications based on the app you're using. But not everyone likes the feel of it though, so I would recommend going into an Apple store and trying it first if you're not sure. But of course the most controversial change here is the removal of the 3.5mm headphone jack. We all knew it was coming, it was rumoured for a long time, and as courageous as Apple think they are, in my experience it is a bit of a pain in the arse. Of course if you already use Bluetooth or wireless headphones, this won't really affect you, but I have quite a few pairs of good wired headphones, and while it is best just to leave the bundled adapter attached to the headphones, it's not really an ideal solution. I think it will push me to invest in some wireless headphones, which is probably for the best and a good thing overall. Apple are of course great at driving innovation, so hats off to them, sort of. So right now it's sort of a minor inconvenience, but there are enough workarounds that it isn't really a deal breaker for me, and I am glad that you do get the bundled 3.5mm to lightning adapter in the box. What I do like though are the speakers, which for the first time on an iPhone are stereo. You've got the usual speaker at the bottom here at the base, although only one of these speaker grills is actually real, the other one is just for show. But the earpiece now also acts as a speaker, so you get more immersive stereo sound when playing games or watching videos. Although one thing I've noticed is that the earpiece speaker is quite a bit quieter than the bass speaker, so you don't get a fully balanced sound. In terms of speed and performance, well, iPhones have always been fast. So telling you that the iPhone 7 has a new quad-core A10 Fusion processor, which has 2 high-power cores and 2 lower-power cores, that even kicks the Galaxy S7's ass in benchmarks, particularly in single-core performance, you'll be like, great, show me. And, well, that's easier said than done. Naturally, the iPhone 7 runs every app and game on the App Store flawlessly. Games like Modern Combat 5 and CSR 2 look incredible and are super smooth, but they ran pretty much the same on the iPhone 6s, so it's really hard to see where all this extra power is used. So yes, it is insanely fast and it does boot a fair bit quicker than the iPhone 6, but in all honesty, you won't really notice the day-to-day difference in speed over the 6S. But what you will notice is the new camera. As I say, it's 12 megapixels, same as the 6S, but that doesn't need to be any higher, that's just fine. What you do get is that wider f1.8 aperture, which is still a little bit narrower than the S7's 1.7, but it's close enough, and it does mean you get much better low light shots, shallower depths of field, and also thanks to the built-in optical image stabilization, which, as I say, was previously exclusive to the Plus model, really smooth video. Overall, the iPhone 7's camera is excellent and trades blows with the Galaxy S7, and where compared to the S7 it lacks perhaps a bit of vibrancy or punchiness compared to Samsung's flagship, it does make up with natural true-to-life colours. The front camera has seen an increase in the resolution, now up to 7 megapixels, which is also great, while it does still have quite a narrow f2.2 aperture, if we haven't seen any change there, and it does still lack a sort of wider field of view like you get on the S7, but it is much more detailed actually, so the iSight camera, the FaceTime camera, sorry, is very good. One thing that I haven't mentioned so far is battery life, and that's because it's pretty unremarkable, to be honest. I haven't actually found it as bad as a lot of other reviewers have. Some people have found it absolutely atrocious and terrible, and of course it all comes down to what you're using it for. But Apple say you should get an extra 2 hours out of the 1960 milliamp hour battery in the 7 over the 6S, and maybe you get a bit more, but it's still not great. You'll get to the end of the day just with a little bit of rationing, but not much more. You'll definitely need to charge it every night. But that's not really a problem for most people, and actually it performed quite well against the Galaxy S7 in my battery test, better than I think I would have expected. After playing Netflix for an hour, the battery dropped 12%, so you'll get around 6 to 7 hours of video. A further hour of gaming did then drop the battery down to 60%, so quite a bit more when playing Modern Combat 5, which is actually only 2% lower than the S7, so pretty interchangeable there. They sort of trade blows in battery performance. But the 7 here isn't exactly bad, it's just not quite as good as you'd want or expect from such an expensive and premium phone. Now, speaking of the price, the cheapest iPhone 7 you can get is £599 or $649 if you buy it outright, which is actually £60 more than the 6S was at launch. But for that, we have to blame Brexit and the weak pound and all that business. That's not really Apple's fault. And in exchange, we do get 32 gigs of storage for the new entry level, which should always be a minimum now anyway. If you do fancy buying the iPhone 7, which I put links to in the description below this video, you can get it in the new glossy jet black, which I hear does scratch quite a lot. It's also not as easy to come by, as well as this new black color, which I really like. It's like a matte black, as well as silver, gold, or rose gold. Now, you may have heard some reports about a hissing sound coming from the new iPhone 7, particularly when it's under load or doing something intensive. And actually, I haven't experienced that on this particular device, which is good news because it means not everyone has that issue. But I have heard quite a few reports about it. So the good news, though, is that all you need to do, if you do have an iPhone and it does suffer from that, just pop down to your local Apple store and they will replace it for you. So that's not really a problem. So that is the iPhone 7. On the one hand, there is quite a lot new here, and actually it is, of course, the best iPhone out there. So if you can afford it and you're a big fan of iOS or just, the look and the hardware, then, it's a pretty safe bet that this is the phone you want to buy. On the other hand, all these changes don't really add up to a whole lot, and as long as you've got iOS 10 installed on your 6 or your 6S, there really isn't a huge difference between the last 3 years worth of iPhones. This is very much more of a 6S. The camera is definitely better, and although it's a lot faster with the A10, you'll struggle to really tell in the real world. So overall, after having used it for over a week now, there's just not a whole lot to get excited about, and it's just a little bit disappointing. The iPhone 7 Plus model, though, looks quite a lot more interesting, even though it is ludicrously expensive. It's got a bigger full HD resolution screen, it's got a new fancy dual camera lens setup, and the battery life is much better. So that might be a better option if you can afford it. Or actually, maybe even waiting for the iPhone 8, which is rumored to be a big overhaul of the iPhone next year to celebrate the iPhone's 10th anniversary. So perhaps wait, or dare I say it, maybe even consider an Android phone like a Galaxy S7, for example, which is cheaper and in many ways better than the iPhone 7. One thing is for sure though, I can't end a review of the new waterproof iPhone 7 without a dunk test. I've left this till the end, so if anything does go wrong, well, I can still use some of this video. So here we go. The iPhone 7, which ordinarily I would never ever put an iPhone in a glass of water like this. Doesn't feel right. Let's give it a bit of a shake around, a bit of a stir in there. Let's give that a shake off. Nice and wet. Good way of cleaning it. And everything's fine. Everything seems perfectly usable. Excellent. Anyway, thank you very much for watching, guys. This has been my review of the iPhone 7. As always, let me know what you make of it in the comments below. Will you be buying the 7, waiting for the 8, or are you perhaps more of an Android fan? Let me know in the comments. Thank you very much for watching. Please do like, share, and subscribe, and I'll see you again next time right here on the Tech Chat.